What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. So Riot's been pumping out a ton of reworks lately, that's no secret, but there's actually quite a lot that goes on behind the scenes that we just don't always get to see. Sometimes that means reworks that end up getting cancelled, but it also means reworks that might get iceboxed to be worked on, multiple years in the future instead. And so we've done some research as always and made a list of some pretty interesting cancelled reworks that just didn't make it into League of Legends. And just before we start, I want to give a huge shout out to audible.com for making this video possible. I always love listening to audiobooks pretty much ever since I was a kid, but the thing is that the retail price for audiobooks, well, let's be honest here, it gets pretty darn expensive. I mean, some audiobooks cost upwards of like $40 each, but you know what? If you sign up at audible.com/Jeremy, you'll get a free audiobook, and not only that, but you can try one out, and if you don't like it, well, you get a chance to switch it for something else. I'm currently listening to The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It's a pretty neat book about how people use and, develop their own habits to drastically improve their lives. We've personally been using Audible for over a year now, since before we were ever sponsored by them, so I'm super proud to have them as a sponsor for our channel finally, and without further ado, let's jump right back into the video. First up for our cancelled reworks, we have Jace, who was actually in the process of getting a rework by Riot Zephyrus. The Jace rework was actually taken out of Zephyrus's hands completely though, because apparently what ended up happening was that while he was working on the Jace rework, he was just getting so carried away with the update overall that he ended up going way outside of the scope of just fixing Jace's annoying problems and kind of just started trying to totally reinvent the wheel in a sense. He mentioned on the Riot forums that although the design goal for Jace's rework meant to be about him not really instantly three-shotting people anymore and removing the frustration that came with it, but Zephyrus ended up trying to just completely reapproach how a transformed champion in general should function. And he actually mentioned a few of the changes that he wanted to implement at the time, including a total redo of his melee form W, and just really messing with his mana costs, like making his melee Q cheap as hell, but his melee E extremely expensive. And he also had the idea to do away with ultimate levels and just give Jace a 6th rank in his other abilities too, which was actually quite cool and ended up being used later on down the line. Now the problem was that the changes Zephyrus had suggested at the time for his rework didn't actually fix the issues that Jace had. I mean, they were interesting, but he ended up going pretty crazy with it, so Riot, the design team, they just took the project away from him and said, okay, you're not working on this anymore, you're done. And a fairly light version of this rework did actually eventually get released in patch 5.11, using Zephyrus's idea of taking away his ultimate ranks to remove the feel bad moments of leveling up the kind of pointless ability, to give him the extra rank in each of his basic abilities instead. And that change definitely made Jace a little bit more unique as a champion, but for a cool concept like swapping between ranged and melee, Jace is, maybe he's a good choice for a proper rework at some point, but this one that was being designed by Zephyrus just didn't work out. Next up, we have Olaf, who was actually considered as a rework candidate alongside the Juggernauts at the time, because Riot does consider him to be a part of the Juggernaut class as well. So the rough idea of the Olaf rework was that instead of having a normal ultimate Ragnarok, it would be this event that when it started, when it triggered, it would just keep getting more and more intense right up until the game ended. It was a lot more thematic considering the ability, it is named after this Norse god apocalypse kind of thing. But the ideas for how it would work were actually just insane. This might have been the craziest ability I've ever seen in League of Legends. Essentially, the way this version of his rework ultimate worked was that when Olaf hit level 18, every single champion on the map would constantly have their current health reduced by a percentage every single second for the entire rest of the game. And that's honestly just as crazy as it sounds. And although Riot scrapped the idea, Riot Repertoire said that his only regret was not getting to see that ability in action, because honestly it was just crazy. Personally, I want to see this ability in action at least once for sure as well. I mean, maybe Riot could release an apocalypse game mode or something where stuff like this happens as the game goes on and it just gets more and more out of hand and snowballs like crazy. I mean, come on. That would definitely be pretty fun as an alternate game mode, but as an actual mechanic on a champion, no way, man. Udyr is the third champion on our list who had a rework that got cancelled, and there's actually not necessarily that much info available on his rework specifically. All we really have is one quote from Riot Repertoire that essentially just confirmed that it was in development at the time and it didn't get released. He mentioned that Udyr was also considered as a candidate for a rework during the Juggernauts update, and at one point he had an ability that allowed him to just spawn crazy additional neutral monsters. So we're not entirely sure how that ability might work, but considering in the lore Udyr lives between like the world of the men and the spirits and can kind of tap into like the animal spirit powers kind of thing. I mean, maybe he does awesome stuff like summon a spirit wolf or like a spirit razorbeak or some kind of cool ass spirit creature, you know? Now that would actually make a lot of sense thematically if the creatures attacked for him, but they were actually kind of just neutral though, so I don't really know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine on this one. I'm not really sure where Riot was headed with this one and if it even would still be a Juggernaut at this point, but I guess that's partially why it was scrapped, right? Besides, as far as spawning minions go, Yorick's definitely going to be the first pick thematically for that kind of mechanic. I mean, that guy definitely needs some love for sure. And we've got another one with just a little bit of information, but just enough to prove that it existed. Riot Repertoire mentioned a while back that a while ago Riot had been playtesting a reworked version of a Shaco prototype actually. So the Shaco rework is essentially clearly meant to be tricksy and very thematic and oriented because he kind of had this skill where he would blink out of existence and then be replaced by a missile, and then Shaco would reappear when the missile ended on the other side of it. And the story went that during the playtesting period, they were also testing out Yasuo's Windwall at the time before they actually coded it properly. And, you know, they just kind of threw the thing together so that they could playtest some version of it. And when they were playtesting that version of the Shaco rework together with Yasuo, there was a moment where Shaco's, you know, vanish into missile thingy, he would fire it into Repertoire, who would use his Windwall and try to block the Shaco body kind of missile, but he ended up getting a little bit more than what he bargained for, and the thing that ended up happening was that Shaco got blocked by the Windwall just a little bit too much, and he actually never reappeared at all. He was just randomly completely removed from the rest of the game for the entire duration of it. And I mean, man, things like that are just so funny, and it really kind of makes you wish you were a playtester for Riot so you could see like all the ridiculous things that really happened firsthand. But after that hilarious bug of just like a catastrophe of a situation, they decided to just move forward on different projects when it came to Shaco. And last but not least, and definitely in need of a rework, Riot, please, we've got Aatrox. So we found out about this one from a Riot playtester called Gentleman Gustav, and saying that they playtested a rework for Aatrox at the time, but that rework was actually iceboxed for a later date because they decided it would be better to update him during a roster update rather than giving him like an individual champion rework like they did with, you know, with Ryze and Taric and stuff like that. Riot Reeve 3 also confirmed this as well, saying that Aatrox's rework won't be quite different enough to merit being an individual rework on its own. So although we don't know what they're going to change for sure, we do know that they had some big rework planned in the past that got cancelled, and now they're going to, sometime in the future, they're definitely going to give him some much needed updates, but it's going to be a much smaller rework overall. I suppose that's probably means that he's going to be in the fighter update, since that's pretty much the class that he falls into the best, unless they plan on reworking him into maybe like a different playstyle, I guess. His main theme is definitely still going to be the lifesteal stuff for sure, but aside from that, he doesn't entirely have anything original or really a niche to feel, so they might even just give him like some kind of gimmicks or something like they did with the Juggernaut reworks for some champions. You know, something to make him have more of an actual impact on a game. And that could be a pretty interesting way to give people a reason to play Aatrox at least. Okay, so I know I said that this was going to be a list of champions, but there's another one that popped up that I thought was actually pretty interesting because Riot also tested a stealth rework back in 2012. So Riot Coronac said that someone had a good idea that they wanted to experiment with in terms of making stealth just more fun to play against in general. And after some initial prototyping, Riot decided the new system showed some promise, so they mentioned it on the forums and asked for some feedback and stuff like that. And that first stealth rework attempt 4 years ago was instead kind of just put on the side, and as an alternative, they just reworked Evelynn and Twitch directly, but because the players were now expecting a huge stealth rework at the time, there was actually a lot of disappointment that went around, and at the time, Riot wasn't entirely sure whether players wanted different or a more complex stealth system, or really just some changes that made stealth champions more viable and less annoying in terms of counterplay. But it's interesting to know that they actually did toy with the idea of a full-blown stealth rework pretty much 4 years ago. I mean, for those of you wondering what a stealth rework might look like, you're not going to have to wait all that long actually, because a total stealth rework is set for release alongside the Assassin update actually coming around patch 620 to 622 sometime in the preseason for Season 7. And it's pretty much going to be affecting every champion that uses stealth in the game, so it looks like not that many champions are going to be left out, which is pretty exciting stuff. You know, it's not entirely a canceled rework for a champion, but it is a pretty interesting piece of information that contains to a canceled rework back in the day. And it's interesting to see how that canceled rework from 4 years ago has been revived and brought back and is pretty much going to happen, almost confirmed now. So that just about wraps up what we know so far about those canceled reworks in specifically. I mean, it honestly sounds like Riot spends a crap ton of time just playtesting tons of different ideas for abilities and reworks and new champions and old champions and all sorts of stuff. And it just makes me wish that they would kind of just like shove them into a game for like a for fun custom game mode kind of thing sometime, or I don't know, you know, when they come up with something really crazy. I mean, there's definitely a lot of potential for future reworks in, you know, later on down the line. And there's also quite a few more canceled reworks that we have a little bit of information here and there, and we're just kind of trying to piece together, and you know, maybe we can make a part 2 of this video in the future. And as well, there are a lot of champions on this list that haven't really had any really significant changes at all, so maybe some of these ideas were iceboxed and will actually show up later on down the road in a different form than they were originally conceived in. But I mean, what do you guys think? What champion do you think deserves a rework that isn't already getting one in the future? Definitely let us know in the comments below, and it looks like that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed the video, definitely drop a like, and if you didn't enjoy the video, the dislike button is right there next to it, and subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.